Hola clase. Today we're going to be covering informal commands. It's important to know there are three main forms of a verb: indicative, subjunctive, and imperative, which we are covering today. For the imperative, when ordering or telling someone to do something is what we call the imperative, also known as commands. In English, commands require no specification of a subject. The subject is always you. Thus, stop is a complete sentence because you is the implied subject in the imperative. However, in Spanish, you can be used in a familiar or informal manner or a formal manner depending on who you're addressing. Remember, you informal singular is tú, you informal plural or you all is vosotros, whereas you formal would be usted and ustedes respectively. This distinction must be made when forming command. An informal command would be used with friends, family, peers, co-workers, or those younger than you. Forming regular informal commands in the two form. First is the affirmative. It's formed the same way as the third person indicative, él, ella, usted form. Adhere to any irregular rules used for these forms. Hablar becomes habla, correr becomes corre, escribir becomes escribe, jugar becomes juega. Now for the negative form, it's formed the same way as the second person subjunctive, to form, and adhere to any irregular rules used for this form. Hablar, no hables. Correr, no corras. Escribir, no escribas. Jugar, no juegues.
Forming irregular informal commands in a two form. Irregulars, with the irregularity specific to the imperative, only exist for the affirmative two commands. 8 verbs have irregular commands: decir, hacer, ir, poner, salir, ser, tener, and venir. You can remember all the verbs, as well as how they conjugate into an informal command through the acronym ven di sal, has, ten, ve ponce. Ven would be for venir, di for decir, sal for salir, has for hacer, ten for tener, ve for ir, pon for poner, and se for ser. Remember the accent on se. When using object pronouns with the to form, you want to attach object pronouns directly to the end of an affirmative to command. Use an accent mark to emphasize the original stress of the command when the original command was more than one syllable. For example, escríbelo, write it, would have an accent over the i. Tráigalas, bring them, would have an accent over the a. If an indirect and direct pronoun must be attached, the indirect pronoun goes first. Escríbemelo, write me it. Tráigamelas, bring them to me. If the original command had only one syllable, an accent mark is only needed when both an indirect and direct object pronoun are attached to it. For dilo, say it, no accent mark is needed, whereas for dímelo, say it to me, an accent mark is needed over the e. With negative commands, simply place object pronouns in front of the verb. No accents are required. For example, no lo compres, don't buy it, or no me digas, don't tell me or you don't say. If both a direct and indirect object pronoun are implemented, put the indirect object pronoun first. No me lo traigas, don't bring it for me. Remember that if the indirect and direct object pronouns both start with el, the indirect object pronoun must be replaced with se. For example, no se lo compres, don't buy it for her. Now we'll move on to forming informal commands for vosotros, which is the second person plural form. For the affirmative, replace the r in the verb's infinitive with a d. For example, hablar would be hablad, which means you all talk, as in you all better talk, a command. Escribir would be escribid, you all write. For the negative, use the conjugation of the vosotros form of the subjunctive. Hablar would be no habléis, don't talk. Escribir would be no escribáis, don't write. For reflexive commands in the affirmative, remove the d and add os. For example, duchaos, you all shower. The exception is ir, which goes to idos, you all go. Verbs ending with ir require a written accent to maintain the stress. For example, with vestir, it would be vestios. Rather, vestirse would be vestios. Object pronouns with the vosotros form. Simply attach object pronouns to the back of an affirmative command. For example, escribidla, write it. Compradlo, buy it. If an indirect and direct object pronoun are added, place the indirect first and use an accent mark to maintain the emphasis. For example, contádnoslo, tell us it. The accent mark would be over the a to maintain emphasis. With negative commands, object pronouns go in front of the verb. No los compréis, don't buy them. Remember, put indirect object pronouns first when a direct object pronoun is also added. For example, no me los compréis, don't buy them for me. We hope that now you are comfortable using informal commands, whether it be tú or vosotros, whether it be affirmative or negative. Thank you for watching this short video.